In our last video, we looked at how we could take our learning outcomes document, or what we call a SARAs, and use it to create a storyboard for our Moodle lesson activity. In this video, what I thought I would do is show you the results of that and what a completed storyboard and the completed files in the process might look like. So just to do a recap here, here's what our standard storyboard will look like. We'll have a subtopic 1, we'll have our main topic up here, we'll have a knowledge check. If they get the knowledge check right, they can move on to subtopic 2. If they get it wrong, you have a choice of either going to subtopic 1 and redoing the content that they had consumed or sending them to supplementary content. Then if they consume that, they can go down to the knowledge check. If they get it wrong, they can cycle through there, or you can continue on in the process. Or if they get it right, they move on to subtopic number 2, and the process continues throughout as many subtopics as you want. Again, I stress that I only show 3 subtopics here in this storyboard, but if we take a look at our storyboard here, you've got blanks that can go on and on and on. So you could have multiple subtopics. So what we did was, in our last video, we started to create our storyboard. So we took our SARAs and we found out our subtopics that we could create resources from. We knew that we could break it down into OER and Creative Commons, Universal Design for Learning, examples of OER and TVET, and then it went on. But for the sake of brevity, we just stopped at those 3. Now we knew that we wanted a knowledge check for the first one. And if they got that knowledge check right, they would move on to UDL. If they got it wrong, they would move back up to Creative Commons and OER and reread that. From there, the UDL, they'd go into a knowledge check, which is a cluster, so there's more than one question that it would randomly pick from. If they got it right, they would move on to examples of OER and TVET. If they got it wrong, we did put in some supplementary information. So we have a video. From there, we go into a knowledge check, one question, and then if they get that wrong, they go back up and rewatch the video. Or we could set it up so that they go right back to the very beginning. And then if they get it right, they go into examples of OER and TVET, a knowledge check, and we'll call that the end of the lesson. So that's the actual storyboard part of it. Then we go take a look at our actual resources that we're going to put in here. And this is where the important part comes. So subtopic number 1 are resources. So the content that's going in there. We said that we wanted some text. We had an OER write-up document in folder 1. We had some Creative Commons license write-up in folder 1, and we had a Creative Commons infographic in folder 1. We also wanted to put in a video in there, as well as we wanted some images put in here. So you notice I make reference to these folders. That's because, as I mentioned in the previous video, we don't want to put the text in our storyboard. There might be too much text to fit in the storyboard, so we need to make references to where to find this. So if we take a look at this, I got OER write-up document, Creative Commons license, Creative Commons infographic. That's folder 1. So if I close this, and you'll see I've got a skills and demand files here, and I opened up, I've got folder 1, text. There's my documents. I've got a Creative Commons licenses document. I've got an OER document written up. If I open that up, you'll see that there's the text that I'm going to be putting into my Moodle lesson. So it stays here. And so it doesn't stay in the storyboard. The storyboard makes reference to that. Let's call the storyboard up again. Same thing with the video. You notice I provide the link because we will be putting this link into our Moodle activity. Images, same thing. Students at desk, Creative Commons images. So you design what you want it to look like. You determine the images that you want. Now, when you're designing this, maybe you don't have these images quite yet. Maybe you have the idea that you want to have a picture of students at desk. Well, instead of saying folder 1, let's say we haven't found it yet. Let's just put down NW, needs work. So that references us. So when we go back to take a look at the document, we'll say, oh, right, I still need to find that image of a student at a desk, where I can go into a classroom and take the image myself, or I can go find some Creative Commons or license-free pictures for people to look at. So if I take a look at that, I go back to folder 1, I open up folder 1 here, and I've got images. And that's where I'm actually keeping my images. So you'll see there's a Creative Commons infographic that I referenced. And I'll pull this up, just jump to another screen, sorry. I will move it over to here. And so there's the image that I want to put in there. So I'm keeping track of all my images. They're all in nice folders, kept away, and that way I have access to everything. So I have folder 1, folder 2, folder 3. That's going to be for my subtopic 1, subtopic 2, subtopic 3. Let's take a look further on in my document here. So my storyboard, so I've got my content for subtopic 1. I said that I only wanted one question. If we go back up to, and it's always a good idea to have perhaps this one here printed off and by your side, as you're going through, just to remind yourself. So if we go down to here, one question. So I came up with a true or false question type true or false, because this is going to go to the developer who's going to enter all this information in for us. Creative Commons CC BY allows for changes to be made wherever the user sees fit. That's true. So that would be the question that we're going to enter into our Moodle lesson. Then we have subtopic 1 supplementary. We didn't put any in there, so I just NA all of them, not applicable. Same thing with the knowledge check. There's NAs there because it's not applicable. I do suggest actually putting the NAs in there. I know it seems like it's redundant, but if you don't, what you end up doing is forgetting that they're not being used, and then you put subtopic number 2 in there, which I know doesn't sound like a big deal, but when it comes time to pass this on to the developers or whoever's entering this information into the Moodle lesson, it can get really confusing really quickly. So if you're not using them, write down NA. So I go to subtopic 2, and let's just flip up here. Again, I'll show you. You can see why it would be nice to have this down. Is UDL, Universal Design for Learning. I have a knowledge check, which is going to have a cluster, which will be more than one question. I then also have supplementary information, so a video on UDL if they get the knowledge check wrong, and then one more knowledge check. So let's go back down and take a look at our subtopic number 2, resources. Subtopic number 2, resources, UDL write-up, infographic on there. So I've got something that I'm going to do a write-up. Not a video, not needed, not applicable. And then some images that I might need. So let's just double check that. Make sure that they're all there. Folder 2. Text. Looks like I've got my UDL principles. I don't have the write-up yet for that infographic. So that's something I'm going to have to put down as needs work. And then my images. Looks like at the school building, I've got an infographic image there. So that's good. So what I'm going to do here is go back to my actual storyboard. And I know that I needed this write-up. So I've got folder number 2. And I'm also going to put down needs work. That allows me to remember that I've got to go back in and do a write-up on that. So it's not actually in existence yet. So I'm going to get rid of that needs work. I go to my knowledge check questions. Because I wanted a cluster, I had to come up with 3 different types of questions. So I came up with a true or false, a multi-choice, and a short answer. I give the answers here. So recognition is not one of that actually didn't write the answer in. So what I'll do here is just say, okay, that's false, because it is one of the 3 principles. There's a multiple choice question, and there's a fill in the blank. So we've got them all built, ready to go for the developer. Then we go down here, and we did, if you remember from before, we did have some supplementary topic. I am going to write up a text for intro, which I didn't put in here yet, so needs work. I do have the video that I want to put in there. What is Universal Design for Learning? Make reference to the link. Or if you're using your own video, you can just make reference to whatever folder you have it stored in. And then your images are NA. Then from there, our supplementary knowledge check, we said we only wanted one question. So I decided on a multiple choice, and I have the question there, and I put the correct answer in there so the developer doesn't have to hunt it down. And we go on to subtopic 3, same thing, folder 3, text on TVET examples, images, needs work, needs work, needs work. They're not there yet. I go down to here, I do have my one question. And then if we go back up, let me just go through here to the top. You'll see that this is going to, oops, I just missed my mark there. So this is where we're at. This is subtopic 3, knowledge check, one question. If they get it right, it's the end of the lesson. So it ends there. And that's an example. And just to show that this is actually a work in progress, I do have folder 3 being built because I'm actually building this from what we're using. I'm putting my money where my mouth is and saying that, okay, I did find those images. Those images that I had said needs work, I did find them and I put them in there. I found some nice Creative Commons license one. The text is there as well. So those are in folder 3. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to go down to my subtopic number 3. Subtopic 1, subtopic 2, subtopic 3. And I'm going to put down, this is now I know in folder 3. And I'll do that for each one of them. Again, always make reference to what folder it's in so that when it comes time to pass this on to whoever's entering it, it might even be just yourself, but if you're passing it on to a development team that is entering this into Moodle for you, they will know which folder to find what images, and it makes life way easier for everybody involved. Folder 3, and I better reference that to folder 3 as well. And that's an example of a completed storyboard, a completed resource guide. So we've created the storyboard. I've also created all my files. all my images, and I've got links to all the videos. Everything is ready to go into the Moodle lesson. In the next video, what we'll do is we'll take these folders and our storyboard and we'll start building our Moodle lesson.